Alrighty, so today's presentation is called YouTube, Instagram, and Podcast Oh My, Knitting and Spinning in Online Spaces. Most of the things we'll be talking about will be focused on knitting, but I did want to also mention spinning because there is a spinning community on a lot of these spaces as well. So, next slide, please. So the first one we're going to talk about is blogs. So if you have been knitting and on the internet for as long as I have, blogs is definitely probably one of the OG places that you saw fiber arts kind of explored online. Definitely probably not the only space, but I remember that was kind of where I found a lot of my early connections to knitting with other people. And so there are still some blogs around, not a ton, but there are things have moved to other I should say not a ton. There are quite a few, but a lot of it has also moved to other social media as well. So blogs are not the only place to find knitting and spinning. And what you'll find on these blogs is a lot of them are just personal blogs. It's somebody who is keeping track of all of the projects that they're working on, sharing those projects, any works in progress, but they also will be discussing just kind of things that are happening in their life as well. So it's a mixture of not only knitting, but also their personal lives as well. They may also share things like patterns that the blogger themselves has created or patterns that they have really enjoyed and are using, and they use it as a way to promote and share those patterns with other people. There may also include other items of interest. So of course, as knitters and spinners, that is not the only thing that we're interested in. And same goes for these people with their blogs. So they may have an interest in, I've seen a lot where people share different things about tea. They share recipes, different media that they're watching or listening to as they're working on their projects. As well as maybe just links to interesting articles that they found and that type of thing. When you are searching for blogs, there's a couple of ways you can do this. First, you can just do whichever search engine you're using, so Google or DuckDuckGo or anything else. You can search just for the type of blog you're looking for and then include the word blog. So if you're looking for knitting blog or spinning blog, that is definitely one way to do it. What I recommend is actually looking for, expanding that keyword a little bit and searching for the best blank blogs of the year. So for instance, for this year, best knitting blogs of 2020. What this will do is there's some websites that will give you a list of different blogs that either, and best is of course a, subjective. A lot of it, what it means is just maybe they've had a lot of traffic that year, or they've had quite a few people who have just been interacting with their blog, or they've just received notoriety for some reason. But that gives you a good starting point and a good list to start with, and figuring out which blogs that you may really like and want to continue following, as well as discovering other blogs. A lot of times you will find one blog and then they will connect and go, hey, my friend so-and-so who also does this type of work, and then you can find their materials as well. So for all of these social media things that I'm going to be talking about today, my big recommendation is when you find one person, if you just stumble across one person, always go and double check, because you usually can find other people that are associated with that blog, either because they have similar content, maybe they follow that person and they mention them, but that's a great way to kind of find an extended community online. Great. Next slide, please, Angela. Yay. So the other one I want to talk about is Ravelry. So for most people, I think, who are knitters and spinners probably know what Ravelry is, but if you are brand new to knitting, this may be something that you're not aware of. So Ravelry is a giant knitting and crochet pattern platform and database. So it is a great place to begin searching for any kind of patterns that you would like. The cool thing about it is because it's a database, the way it's set up is you can search for items based off of the weight of the yarn, how much yarn you have, the specific type of item you're trying to make. So if you're trying to make a sweater, you have this much yarn and it's this weight, what patterns are use those same items. It also it's a great way to support individual pattern creators. So you may have like, you think of like Vogue Knitting and that type of thing that are these big companies, but there are a lot of independent pattern creators who share their patterns and sell their patterns online. So a lot of these patterns are free, but there are other ones that you have to purchase. And a lot of times you can purchase them individually, so you can just buy one pattern, or you can, sometimes if it's a series, they'll have a booklet, so you can purchase just one, or you can purchase all 6 patterns in this collection for a reduced rate type of thing. But this is also a great way to support independent pattern creators. The other cool thing is that it has pattern notes and comments from other people who have tried them. So if you're, for instance, new to making a sweater, or if you found a pattern with a technique that you think is really cool and you want to try it out, you can look, and the creator of the pattern may include pattern notes. So anything where they've had to update about, oh, this was a mistake, really sorry, here's an updated for that. Or there can also be comments from other people in blog posts where they say, hey, I'm working on this, here's an issue I had, or this pattern's really awesome, but be careful of this area, etc. Besides just being an awesome database, it also has community boards, it has projects and challenges and more. So there are all of these forums and different things. So if you're interested in a specific TV show, some of them may be specific to knitting a certain project or a challenge. Some of them may simply be, I'm a fan of this TV show and I want other people to talk about it. So there's a big variety there. But it's a really great place if you want to just start to explore your pattern options. If you have questions about how to, let's say, you want to make a pattern that's asking for worsted yarn, and all that you have is a DK weight or a sport weight, and you're not sure how that's going to affect it, you can ask questions in some of these forums as well, and you'll have people who are knowledgeable who are answering, saying, hey, here's what I've done, or here's a resource I would recommend, or that type of thing. I will say, while you can access some of the patterns, if you, for instance, do a Google search for a pattern, a lot of times you can just get access to the pattern. But really, in order to get access to everything on there, it does require you having a free account. So just be aware of that. Okay, next slide, please. YouTube. Now, I will freely admit I am a big YouTube junkie. I watch all sorts of things on YouTube, and I didn't really think about looking for knitting and spinning stuff on YouTube until pretty much quarantine. For those who don't know what YouTube is a video sharing platform. So it's a place where people can just share one-off videos that they've created that they want to share with family, or there are also people who have platforms and have their own series and shows on there. But besides just finding people who knit, there's so many other awesome things that you can use YouTube for. So what you'll find here is tutorials. So if you are a beginner and you're needing to know any kind of basics, so whether it's different type of cast-ons, if you're trying to figure out how to do a rib or decreases, increases, anything like that, YouTube is a great place to go. If you're like me, I am a visual learner when it comes to knitting and crafting. So while I can read an instruction book that says, oh, this is what you do if you're like trying to do a slip, slip, knit, I still need a visual. And so YouTube is a great place to go for that. So anytime that you're looking for a tutorial when you're trying to learn a new skill of any kind, definitely give YouTube a try. A lot of I know, like, I think Knitpicks has their own channel on there that'll have some of their demonstrations. So you can find some of the knitting and yarn companies will have demonstrations on there. And then other people who just have their own platform may also give demonstrations as well. So when doing a search on YouTube, you can simply say how to, and then blank, so how to do a slip slip knit, or how to do a 1x1 rib, or whatever you're looking for. Or you can simply search for beginner knitting, and it'll give you a long list of videos. You'll still have to kind of comb through them and find what you're looking for. But if you want just kind of more of a basic overview rather than a very specific thing, you can also just search beginning knitting or beginning spinning, and you'll find so many videos. Also on there are what are called podcasts. So to me, the term podcast usually means it's just auditory, but the term podcast is used a lot with knitting on YouTube. And what that is, it's users who are sharing their crafting lives, their projects, item hauls if they've, picked out a whole bunch of yarn, or if they're spinning a whole bunch of yarn and they're sharing that process and what they've gotten, as well as other things. So think of the knitting podcast or the spinning podcast similar to a blog. So you'll have someone who may be sharing like, oh, hey, everybody, here is what's been going on in my life. Also, here's this project that I'm working on. Here is this finished project that I've done, and let me talk about my experience doing that. Also, here are maybe some dream projects I'm working on. Also, let me share with you another part of my life. So someone may really enjoy tea, or they're trying a new coffee, or they really like candles, and they'll share that as well. So this is a great way just to find what other people are doing. I use it a lot for inspiration as well. So if you're just kind of in a knitting or spinning rut and you can't really figure out what you want to do next, watching these a lot of times will give you great inspiration for like, ooh, I really like that pattern of that sweater, or I really like that yarn, and let you go from there. So when you're searching for these items, you can simply search for spinning podcast or knitting podcast. Some people will call theirs like a knitcast, but really the knitting or spinning podcast. Now, I will say, when searching for spinning items, particularly on YouTube, you need to be kind of careful, because if you look for spinning, you're going to get a mixture of spinning actual fiber, and then like spinning as in a spin class, which is cycling for exercise and that type of thing. So when you're searching for anything spinning related, I would say include a keyword like spinning fiber or spinning wheel or spinning something, so that the algorithm realizes, oh, you're not talking about the bicycle, you're talking about working with fiber. Another example is, or another thing you can find on YouTube, is demos and reviews. So if you're interested, let's say, in a new spinning wheel, or you're looking at some interchangeable knitting needles, but you're not really sure, you can always go to the product page and see the comments from people, but you also can search on YouTube. Now, I can't guarantee there will be something for everything, but you can definitely do a search and see, has anyone reviewed this knitting needle or this equipment, this tool, this fiber, or a company in general, if you're wanting to know more information. And then you can get a better idea of like maybe something that you personally don't like in a knitting needle, and someone demonstrates, and you see that that happens with this interchangeable needle, and you go, oh, no, maybe that's not my style. Or if you're concerned about, a fiber and whether or not it's going to be too itchy, or if it's super soft, or if it splits or something like that, you can look and search for here as well. So you can do similar to looking for tutorials or podcasts. You can search for demo and then the name. So if you have the name of the spinning wheel or the name of the company, you also can do review and the name of the tool or the name of the yarn or anything like that. You may have to do a little bit of digging through them to find what you're looking for, but that at least will narrow it down. I do also recommend looking at multiple reviews and multiple demos, because a lot of times what one person will really, really love, another person may not like, and someone else may be in the middle. So it's good to look at multiple videos so you can get kind of a rounded idea of the product. Great, next slide, please. All right, Instagram. So Instagram is a image sharing and social media platform. I always thought of Instagram as either a place that like my friends will share pictures of their vacations or their life, or you'll have YouTubers who just also have an Instagram page and use it to advertise their upcoming videos or sharing their life. But there also is a very large and growing spinning, knitting, just fiber arts in general, crochet community on Instagram. With Instagram, basically the way it works is you are able to post a picture. It's mostly picture-based. There are also videos and that type of thing, really short videos that can be included. And then someone can put in a description and hashtags, which is a way of being able to basically tag, or a way for a post to be identified with something. So this is a great place to find beautiful images and videos about yarn, about works in progress, about completed projects. I really love Instagram because it is a way for you to again, inspiration if you're wanting to just see what other people are doing and discover. And I love just beautiful pictures in general. And so this is a great way of being able to have access to that. You also can, the person who's posting can interact with other fans, or you can also interact with other fans via the comments and commenting about, oh my goodness, this is so pretty. You can ask the poster questions, can't guarantee they'll respond, but you can say, hey, what is this? You know, where did you get this yarn? Or what was your experience with this wheel, or anything like that. So searching in Instagram, you can go through, the way that I normally find people's Instagram pages is actually, I'm usually not searching for it. I usually discover it because I'll find someone on another site, so either like Ravelry or YouTube, that I really enjoy, and they'll list their social media, their other social media accounts, and so I'll discover their Instagram page. But you can also just search for, in the app or on the website, you can search for hashtag knitting, hashtag crochet, hashtag spinning, etc. One thing I'd recommend, just like with other things, if you find a page that you really, really like, usually there's somewhere on that page will be like, hey, here are similar pages that you may also enjoy. And so you can check out the recommended page and find similar accounts that have even more images and more beautiful inspiration and all of that. So again, Instagram for me is a great place, again, just to see beautiful, beautiful pictures and people's works in progress, which again is just super, super inspirational to me. All right, next slide, please. Pinterest. So Pinterest is another image sharing platform similar to Instagram. This is a place where you can find all sorts of things. Again, it's mostly picture, or actually is pretty much picture based. You'll have, you know, where people can put tags or can put a title for a work, but honestly, it's more just image based. And what you'll find here, so you can find images and sometimes links to patterns, which I would recommend. So the images that are posted on Pinterest will usually be linked to an outside website. Do be careful with this because people can use it to send you to not great websites. So you can double check. It'll usually, somewhere on the images or at the title, it'll tell you like what website it's going to send you to. So if it's a picture from a that indicates that it's from a specific yarn store, and then the check to see if the website also matches that yarn store. Or you can just simply go and search, use that as kind of your jumping off point. Do your own separate search for that yarn store or for that specific yarn or spinning wheel or something like that, and find the company that way as well. It's also a great place for color and palette inspiration. So if you let's say you picked up a pattern on Ravelry and you want to see if other people have posted images, you can search on Ravelry, and it'll show you along with the pattern like other people's what they've done with that pattern. But you also can do that with Pinterest. You can search for the name of a pattern and it'll pop up, it'll populate with a whole bunch of images. Also just color inspiration in general. You'll see these beautiful layouts of like yarn and that type of thing. You may not be able to find that specific yarn, but it may give you ideas for your color combinations. And color palettes is another thing. If you're like me, a lot of times I'll be like, ooh, I want to make this item. I want to make this sweater that has Fair Isle in it or something like that, but I'm not 100% sure what colors I want to use. You can search for color palettes, just for color palettes in Pinterest, and you will find so many color palettes that are usually based off of an image. And so you can have, sometimes it's 3, a lot of times it seems to be more up to 4 to 5 colors that you then can use to try and find yarn that kind of matches a similar tone to those colors to create your piece. So when you're doing searches in Pinterest, it's pretty simple. You can simply search for knitting, crochet, spinning yarn or spinning roving, anything like that. You also can search for blank projects. So if you want to look up like sweater projects or scarf projects, knitting projects, that type of thing. You also can search for tutorials as well on here. And so you can look up, you know, cables for beginners or something like that. And it'll give you images and possibly websites to check out for that. As well as you can, again, search for just general knitting patterns, crochet patterns, that type of thing, as well as just knitting inspiration or spinning inspiration, crochet inspiration, that type of thing. 2 notes on this. One we've already kind of covered, but the other one, it does require a free account for full access and being able to save and pin your the pins that you find onto your own boards. That's another thing. So everybody on Pinterest has their own board, and you're able to organize these pins by groups. You also now can do subgroups, which is really handy. So for instance, you could have your crochet pin board, but underneath that you can have like granny squares, you can have hats, you can have sweaters, and then you can organize it as much or as much as you would like, basically. And you can access some of the images, like if you do a search in Google or DuckDuckGo for Pinterest knitting pattern sweater, it'll show you images and you can go to those, but really to get full access, you do require that free account. Excuse me. But again, just be careful of clicking on the links. Be, careful and responsible as you would anywhere else on the internet to make sure that you're going to a good place. A lot of times, if a pin has been flagged as problematic for some reason, if you try and click on it, it'll pop up a box that says, "Hey, unfortunately, this may go to spam, so we're not going to redirect you to that link." This is also a great place where you can follow other people. So if you start finding boards or pins from someone else that you really like, you can actually follow them and it'll show you, there's a tab on Pinterest that'll have you like, hey, here's all what your friends have been pinning as well. All right, next slide, please. Podcast. So this may seem a little different when you're working with knitting or spinning. That's a very kind of physical and visual sort of medium when you're watching someone knit or showing off someone's project or anything like that. But there are quite a few podcasts out there as well. These are just great to listen to while you're working or just in life in general. For those that don't know what podcasts are, they're basically episodic audio programs. So they're programs that are done sometimes weekly, sometimes monthly, usually with a host or two, and maybe possibly guests talking about a specific topic. So what you'll find here is a lot of discussion about works in progress as usual. Some people may discuss techniques that they're exploring and experimenting with. There may be audio tutorials. So someone may, for instance, be explaining their spinning that they're currently working on, and they may talk about a technique and kind of walk you through audibly how they would do a certain technique type of thing. There also can be recommendations for companies to check out or for different types of yarn to try, fibers to try, tools, etc. And this is also a great way to discover new vocabulary and terminology to research later on. So if you're like me and you're more of a visual person, you can listen to these. So for instance, I'm wanting to learn how to spin. So I've been listening to a couple of spinning podcasts, and they will talk about certain things. For instance, the use, how using certain yarns with a very specific fiber length, longer length can be easier to spin, etc. They may explain like, here's a really good beginner spinner type of yarn from this specific animal, or maybe it's a man-made product or something like that. That gives you terminology that you then can go and research yourself. Because a lot of it, I know for me, when you're starting off with knitting, is really learning the terminology, the vocab, all of that, so that you have a better understanding of what you're needing, of what you're doing. So any kind of podcast is just great to get that kind of information, so you have new vocabulary that you then can go research, and it makes it easier to find the information that you're looking for. And also, it's just great to hear someone discuss about their crafting life. It's really inspirational. It's a lot of fun. If you don't have a lot of friends who maybe also do any type of crafting or knitting or spinning or anything like that, this is a great way to kind of get still that connection with someone else who also enjoys similar projects to you. So when you're doing keyword search terms, you can search. There's a couple different ways of searching. You can search online via any kind of search engine. Or you can also search through a podcast app. So if you have, for instance, an iPhone, you can use the podcast app that's already on there, and you can search on that. You also can search like iHeartRadio or something like that to see if they have any podcast, or you can just do a general search online and find the name of podcasts that you then can search in your podcast apps that you're using. So you basically can just search for knitting podcast, crochet podcast, spinning, crafting podcast in general as well. If you're like me and have multiple interests outside of fiber arts, the crafting podcast a lot of times will send you to a whole bunch of other things as well. Right, next slide, please. Another thing I wanted to mention, online stores and local stores. So with the quarantine, a lot of online stores have sort of gotten really, really creative to be able to still have a connection with their community. So I would highly recommend check out any online stores that you use, as well as the online stores of local yarn shops, to see if they have any, one, if they're doing any kind of like curbside pickup, or if they're doing some kind of uh, if they're just shipping from their store, as well as they're doing maybe appointments so that you can come in and check out their materials, but also see if they have any kind of social interaction type of programming. So a lot of stores are doing Zoom knit and crochet hangouts. So every, once a month or maybe once a week on a Monday night or a Friday night, you can go and hang out, similar to how we're doing for Knitcon. You can go hang out with other crafters and just talk about projects and that type of thing. A lot of places are also doing knit-alongs, which basically means there is a pattern that they have picked out that everybody is knitting along together and discussing and exploring that experience together. And also just a reminder to support local yarn shops, particularly now, trying to keep as many open as we can through this pandemic as well. I believe that's the last slide. Yep, it is. So that is my presentation.